Carlo Cardilli, Head of Product at Alpharank. Welcome to our conversations around best practices for growth for your financial institution. I'm delighted to be joined today by Aaron Caid, who's the CMO of Christian Community Credit Union. Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
And Nicholas Hinrichsen, CEO of Clutch. Nikki, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Wonderful. For those who are new to the series, Alpharank is an optimization system for the online branch. Our clients are able to increase funded loans and deposits by at least 50% in the first 6 months without spending an extra penny on marketing. These gains come from higher intent clicks, a more efficient journey, and prospects with a higher book to look ratio. Any marketing campaign you run, whether it's a targeted email, a postcard with a QR code, a Google ad, connected TV, will tell you exactly how many dollars you booked from those clicks, and most importantly, how to get more dollars per click. These insights come from a model that we've trained on 6.6 billion first-party data points from 200 financial institutions. And this model provides you recommendations on how to curb abandonment, improve lead quality, and maximize dollar production. Everyone in the audience can get a free 1-month subscription to the Alpharank system. To see how this works with your own data, visit us at alpharank.ai. So for our audience, we want your participation and your questions. We'll have you in listen-only mode at first. You can send in questions through the Zoom Q&A panel. When we get to the Q&A, we will unmute your line, let you ask the question live. We want to have a real conversation. Or if you're shy, we'll just read it out for you. Everyone will get a follow-up email with links to the recording and other information from today's discussion. Now, let's get into the fun stuff. Aaron, we're here to discuss your impressive 175% year-on-year growth in new funded deposit accounts. So to be crystal clear, we're not talking about clicks. We're not talking about leads. These are applications that came in, have been fully vetted, funded, end up in your balance sheet. The money's in the credit union, and we're comparing third quarter of 2025 with the third quarter of 2024. I want to dive into the strategy so other folks in the call can be inspired to generate similar results for their financial institution. So, Aaron, one of the things I remember from our earlier conversation is that you picked up on, I want to call them red flag metrics, that you had reached diminishing returns on Google Ads. You needed to try something new, and then you pushed your team to go find something new and experiment. So let's just jump into that journey for you.
Great, Carl. It's great to be with you and to be with all the participants in this webinar. So thank you very much. And this is a topic I love talking about. So it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, the what we saw was a decline, a pretty precipitous decline in cost. I mean, increase in cost per funded account. And that's really the metric that we optimize to. It's not clicks, it's not impressions. Those things are leading indicators. Those tell you something about the visibility you're getting and how you're starting to attract folks. But what really matters is how many folks are you serving? How many folks are you attracting into the credit union and funding an account for them? So that was the biggest indicator, and that was deteriorating over time. We also saw a deterioration in through the door credit criteria. So we were getting a lower quality applicant, especially on the credit side of the equation. So that necessitated doing things differently.
And
Um,
that manifested itself in what I'll call a lower sort of book to look ratio.
exactly. Exactly. So that necessitated doing things differently. We didn't abandon search, we didn't abandon social, but we started to look for other areas where we could reach an engaged, devout Christian audience, and one who would be attracted to our mission to basically align their faith and their finances. And that as a through result of active testing, intentional testing, we found places where we were getting better performance, where we were reaching Christians, we were attracting them into the application process and improving that cost per funded account. Um, and so that's that we shifted our investment relatively away from search into publications that were either explicitly Christian or over-indexed Christian in terms of
Hmm.
their
Hmm.
audience.
So just for context for those on the webinar, you are the largest faith-based financial institution in the United States. You're like a single branch. So you're like the Navy Federal or USAA. But for this specific segment, you have a nationwide field of membership. So you're going up against the big boys. But for context, what's your current asset size?
We're about 1.5 billion.
All right. So I think the message to everybody, you can be 1.5 billion and punch above your weight, but you got to have, an Aaron Caid type of philosophy to drive the car. Um, so I think these lessons, they would translate for anybody who has a very specific geographical field of membership, employment-driven base, I think.
Absolutely. The our field of membership is both an opportunity and a challenge. Um, uh, we serve Christians and Christian ministries and Christian-owned businesses across the country in all 50 states. So we are not geographically bound. Our common bond of membership is our Christian faith. Um,
Hmm.
with the big tech platforms, we don't necessarily have the same ability to leverage their targeting algorithms that other other organizations would have. So that's where some of the challenge comes in. They make it intentionally
Intentionally.
challenging to do that. So we have to find our audience in different ways.
Intentionally. Sounds a little controversial. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it's just because we're trying to reach a faith-based audience, and we're trying to reach them with faith-based messaging. There are limitations that big tech place on both of that in terms of targeting and even the messaging where the ads we're able to put out there. So what
Hmm.
we found is we have better success by choosing the audience ourselves through the publication we're choosing to advertise with, through the partner we're choosing to advertise with, and then the message itself. That becomes a very big and important filter. Leading with faith-forward headlines, faith-forward messaging, that enables us to attract the audience that aligns with our statement of faith and our field of membership, folks who are more likely to engage with the credit union because their desire is to align their finances with their faith. It's not a rate driven or promotional relationship. It's a deeper faith connection that is at work, and that's where we're having the greatest success.
Cool. Cool. Now, given that your primary metric that you're trying to manage to is this cost per funded account, and you've got all these potential sources of traffic, these potentially different avenues to explore, what I've noticed is that, sometimes technology comes along that makes stuff viable today that was not viable before. So a lot of people are watching Landman, and so we'll go with that. There's all these fields that were played out. Then fracking comes along, and we can sort of frack these fields, and we can get oil out that was not viable to get out before. So in fintech, along comes Clutch and Nikki, and now you have a next generation account opening solution that might enable you to tap media that was not viable before, but is viable now.
Absolutely. Technology has played a huge role in the improvements that we've been able to see year over year, and Clutch has played a big role in that. Our legacy solution was not intuitive. It created a heavy cognitive load on the applicant. I mean, I remember myself when I went through the application process as a prospect, and
You
put my
secret shopped your
prospect
own
hat
your own credit
on.
union. Shocker.
I went through
Everybody
that
should rush
process,
out
and
and
my
do it
first
right
reaction
now.
is,
You
"This
should
is
you should do it. Every CMO should do it at least once a month. They should feel the
yes."
pain directly, right?
And you're right. I still do that. But my first go at this with our legacy solution was I looked at it. My first reaction is, this is a lot of work. I mean,
Hmm.
you have to have some commitment to get through this process. I did because I was the CMO of the credit union, and I had a very strong incentive to get through the process. But most most people in the general population don't. So
In
it
fact,
struck me as a lot of
one thing
work,
that
and
we
it's
noticed,
like
I'll throw this in there, but sometimes level of commitment is inversely correlated with the quality of the prospect.
exactly,
So people
exactly.
with options will go elsewhere, and people without options will persist because they've been denied in 20 other places.
Exactly. That's a perfect description of adverse selection. So,
Hmm.
the result of the legacy solution is, it had a very big impact on pull through. Unsurprisingly, not enough people were getting through the process, and not enough good people were getting through the process.
Yeah,
With
I'm gonna just
Clutch,
pause you there. Pull through, the way we think about it, is the ratio of completed apps that go into the system divided by the number of clicks that were used to generate those apps. So for everybody else, people will talk about conversions. Nobody knows what conversion means. We're very, very specific here. It's your click to application ratio. So,
yeah, and with the when we launched with Clutch earlier in last year. It was a night. It was a perfect positive storm combined with what the progress we had made in terms of finding our Christian audience, reaching them with faith forward messaging, combined now with a world-class application prospect experience, where we're presenting information or asking questions in bite-sized chunks, reducing that cognitive load.
hmm.
But most importantly, what the Clutch solution has offered us is the fraud orchestration layer. We're able to deliver a differentiated experience for applicants based upon their perceived level of fraud risk. So those who are low risk have a very smooth experience. Those where there's questions about the level of risk might encounter some speed bumps on the way. And those who are downright bad fraudsters get weeded out very early in the process, saving
Hmm.
saving us time and effort. So that's where we got the biggest lift was we're saying no to more of the bad guys, but we're
Hmm.
letting the good guys through with a much more seamless experience and with fewer false positives. So
Right.
the net
So
result
higher
is
click to app ratio, and then higher app to funded ratio, or book to look, however you want to call it.
absolutely.
Great. So, Nikki, I got to ask you about your
Yeah.
source of inspiration in account opening and loan origination solutions. We support at AlphaRank over 40 different account openings, loan origination, mortgage origination solutions. So, what were you thinking when you started the 40th in an already crowded field? I mean, it sounds kind of suicidal. So,
Who knows? Well, let's go backwards. I always say and lead with onboarding is the most important thing to focus on, especially for somebody in Aaron's role, because you don't get a second chance at creating a first impression. So you have all these metrics, and I know you'll show us a
I'm
chart.
also going to add one more thing. Most of
Yeah,
these products are what I call you only need one. You only need one primary DDA. You only need one vehicle loan today. They're not like, Nike sneakers where I have like five that I rotate for different occasions, right? You only need one. So not
yeah,
only it's you only get one impression, you really only get one shot at getting that vehicle loan or that DDA.
it's true. Preaching to the choir, both of you. So knowing that, we need to ask ourselves, okay, so what does the solution need to look like? And the best way to figure it out is obviously to talk to clients and customers and learn from them. But then we had the benefit, my co-founder and I, Chris, and I had the benefit of having been in a very similar space for a long time. And so maybe I'll go back real quick. I'm from Germany originally. I moved to the US to go to business school and met Chris, my co-founder at business school. And when we graduated from Stanford, he kind of tricked me into starting this business with him where we sold cars online. So that was not Clutch, that was the previous business. And we thought we would build something like Amazon for used cars, which was a direct to consumer business, which we ran for 4 years and then sold to Carvana.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed at Carvana for 3 years and did nothing else than build frictionless digital experiences for auto buying, auto selling, and auto lending.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing that, think of this as e-commerce. You need to make it really easy for consumers to turn awareness of I want a car into a purchase order. You need to
Mm-hmm.
make it incredibly easy for that consumer to apply for a loan and of
Mm-hmm.
course see the loan decision on the spot and then decision on it. And then since these are primarily one-time transactions, you need to be really good at weeding out fraud because you get one chance at it and you better
Mm-hmm.
know that this is a fraudster and this is not. And so as we left Carvana, we were in love with the credit union mission. My first bank account was with a credit union. We strongly felt that all these car loans that are originated at the dealership should in reality be with regional banks or credit unions. And we felt somewhat uniquely qualified to add to the community and the movement from a digital experience perspective. But we knew we had so much to learn from the credit union itself. So our first year and a half or 2 years, we spent just talking to credit unions, and we met Aaron and team quite early and even started on the lending side, made it easy to apply for loans. And then when the need to
Mm-hmm.
raise deposits came, we expanded the solution, which now all of that is 4 years, and the maturity of both products is the same. In fact, the unified experience across both products is what makes it so compelling. And that I guess you asked about why we built the 41st when there were 40 already. Well, if you unify the experience, you're the first. But that's how we end up in the space, and we're just eternally grateful for the partnership.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Amazing inspiration. Well, I'm going to ask you a tough question. I'll let the two of you fight over it. But I think the question is how much of the improvement that Christian community has seen on a sequential quarter-on-quarter basis is it due to the better experience, or how much is due to the marketing and tactical prowess of going out and finding these new sources of traffic that monetize well? So since I'm European, you're European, Nikki, let's just use a Formula One analogy. There's a car and there's a driver. So let's say, well, you're German, so let's pick a German car, Mercedes,
Yeah.
and let's go with Sir Lewis Hamilton as Aaron Caid, the winningest driver in Formula One. So you are the car, Aaron's the driver. How much is the car and how much is the driver here?
Well, the driver can't drive without the car, and the car won't move without a driver. So it has to be the
Oh, that's a
combination of
hedge, but okay.
both. Um, you've seen great drivers win races in bad cars, and you've seen great cars lose races because of the drivers. So I truly believe it's the combination of both. The real partnership is understanding and being very data driven in how we look at success and making improving. So what I really appreciate about the both of you is you're not coming to us with feature requests and tell us, I think this would be prettier. No, you would
Hmm.
tell us our pull-through rate is X or conversion rate is Y or our book to look is Z. We want to improve it. We have a thesis around one or two or three configuration changes that we could make to the platform would contribute to that. Can we make those changes? Or can we allow Aaron to make those changes whenever he wants to, and then measure the impact of these changes? And so the
Hmm.
big difference between what I described and what we sometimes experience is opinions really don't matter because the,
That's
the
right. We
proof
all
is in
have
the pudding.
opinions, but
Yeah.
we all answer to the facts, right?
And you all do just a phenomenal job at letting opinions be opinions, but focusing on the facts and the data and let data drive the decision you're making.
Right.
And the reason why that matters is because we could build unlimited features and unlimited configuration to the platform. Instead, we're leading with strong conviction around fraud should be managed through an orchestration layer that Aaron and team can configure. You should not rely on us to add another fraud service and add it to a roadmap. If fraud changes, which it does every single day,
Hmm.
then we'll tell you, sir, we're busy doing something else. So the
Yeah,
fraud
yeah. You're
effort,
finding a shape-shifting enemy.
you have no chance if, and you have no chance if you make it the vendor's job to integrate with a new service and hope that his roadmap allows for that integration whenever you need it. No,
Hmm.
fraud needs to be managed through an orchestration layer. And you need to be able, and I always use the Swiss cheese as an analogy. There's no one fraud service that is perfect. Every fraud service is like a layer of Swiss cheese with holes in it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's got its own little holes, and you gotta hope
Exactly.
they
And you
don't
need to
line up.
layer multiple on top of each other, and then you can't look through it anymore. But there's going to be another hole to more because a fraudster found a loophole. And then Aaron needs to be able to add the service whenever he wants to the fraud orchestration without having to call me and having me to write a line of code. So the
Hmm.
fraud error is 100% I gave Aaron the tool to do it himself,
Hmm.
but it's Aaron who's the driver who configures it such that he drives the business outcomes you want.
Right. So it's like changing the setting on the car. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
100%, 100%.
So,
So
so the
that's where
clutch
the
tagline, which I love, is turn your credit union into a fintech.
oh yeah.
Aaron, do you feel like you're a fintech now?
Yeah, I like that moniker.
So, Nikki, if you were to give 3 bullet points, what does it mean to make a credit union or a bank a fintech?
Um, this will surprise you, but I'd argue we're not selling software. I think what we have become good at is we're providing a technology platform and
Hmm.
help credit unions think through how the technology impacts processes and people. So the piece of technology, the best piece of technology cannot be successful unless and until we partner and collaborate on the change management necessary and the changes that you need to make that are counter to it, but we've always done it this way. And so a fintech does the following. It uses technology to enable something that was either a manual process before and or to reach an audience that you could have not reached otherwise.
Hmm. Hmm.
In Aaron's case, you have both. You drive the traffic through performance marketing into the platform. We can track what it does. Otherwise, you wouldn't know any of these numbers. But then we had collaborations around, okay, how do we fundamentally change, paradigm shift, change the way you look at fraud? Because historically, and Aaron, you correct me if I'm wrong, but historically, you would look at every single application, manually review it for fraud or not. And if you add that level of friction in the process, in your case, the book to look would just go,
Right, right. Because people want answers in real time. If they're applying for a loan on a Sunday afternoon because they just walked, the dealer lot on Sunday, they want an answer Sunday evening and get that deal done on Monday. To be able to tell them, well, my underwriters are not around over the weekend, so I'll get back to you Tuesday. It's
it,
just not
it,
going to work,
it'd be
right?
very difficult. It goes back to one point I think you said earlier, the there is an inverse correlation between the patience and the quality of the lead. So
Absolutely.
if the lead isn't very high quality, the patience is high. But if you have a high quality lead that is part of the Christian community that took Aaron a lot of money and effort to find, well, you better create an amazing experience for that person. Otherwise, that person will go shop somewhere else.
That's right. That's right. So I wanted to change gears a little bit and go back to something we said earlier. We all have opinion, but we answer to the facts. Um, I think another truth is, every one of us has an overlord. No matter high up where in an organization, there's somebody else that we need to report to.
Yeah.
Even if you're the CEO. So in a company, you would have to report to a board. So Aaron, I was wondering if you could walk us through how, I know your boards are very involved, what that board interaction looks like when you're driving the credit union through this um, sort of period of high growth, and um, how do they look at all this thing between the technology, which obviously, like Nikki said, it's just a means to an end here, right?
Right.
And then now you have these better tools. What does that board interaction look like?
Yeah, so I mean, our board prioritizes and values growth, but it's not for the sake of growth. It's not as an ego metric. It is because growth is important for the ongoing health and the long-term health of the credit union. And it helps us serve our mission better because we're serving more Christians, allowing more Christians to align their faith and their finances. So it really enables us to live out that mission at a higher level. So talking to the board about, some of the top of funnel metrics isn't really where I focus. I mean, they care about what are we generating, what's coming out of the bottom of the funnel.
Hmm.
How many funded accounts are we booking? What does that translate into in terms of new members? And then what did we spend to bring them on board? So that that's what they care about. So when
So
I'm able to
you reposition marketing then um, away from being a cost center to being a revenue driver.
exactly, it's not just money that you're spending on marketing. It is generating a bottom line outcome, and it is booking an engaged, faith aligned member who ideally will stick around for a long time, add lots of products, and then go out and refer friends and family, and generate have a long-term relationship with the credit union. So being able to show that to the board every month is critical. Being able to get to attribution at a lower level, not only talk about how we're doing by channel, by strategy, even by tactic. I mean, so being
Mm-hmm.
able to implement a detailed test plan where we
Mm-hmm.
can consistently tee up challenger strategies, challenger offers, challenger creative against our champions, and measure that performance differential, and then move our money to the strategies that are performing best. We're always out there looking for the challenger that's going to unseat the champion. And the
Uh,
board loves that. I mean,
mm-hmm.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
it demonstrates to them, I think, that we're stewarding the budget that they've given us well, and we're doing that to the best outcome for the credit union.
Another famous Formula One driver, Mike Andretti, used to say that if you don't feel like you're at the edge of control all the time, and if you're not crashing occasionally, you're just not driving hard enough. So if you're pushing hard, you're going to have this occasional experiment that doesn't work out. And then you have to be able to talk about that honestly and course correct. But at the end of the day, you got to have a certain small percentage of failures because otherwise, again, you're not pushing hard enough. So with all the growth that you're having, now that you've merged with another Christian-based credit union, can you speak to how that dialogue works?
Well, it's not something that we shy away from talking about. I mean, it actually builds trust. It lends credibility to the strategies that are working because we're out there trying new things, and a lot, more than a handful of them will fail. And we do that knowing that that's the outcome. It's looking for
Mm-hmm.
those test cells, those strategies that you might not have expected that pop, that show a significant lift over what you've been doing, that create an opportunity to shift your investment to generate an even better outcome. But these things are always changing, right? So we can't just say, hey, we've got it figured out. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing day after day and get the same outcome. That will not be the case. Things change every day, and things that were working yesterday may not work today or may not work as well today. So having a robust and intentional test plan that we're executing across channel, and being able to look at those results specifically, and we get that insight through Alpha Rank, through what Alpha Rank is
Mm-hmm.
able to show us, the attribution visibility it gives us into our strategies and tactics, that we can learn from that very quickly. That, hey, this test didn't work. Well, let's try the next thing. Or, hey, this just beat our champion. We're going to move our investment into this test and roll it out. And then being able to talk about that with the board openly. Hey, here's what's working. Here's what's not working. Here's what we've learned, and here's what we're now doing with that. I think develops a very high level of trust and just a strong relationship with them because they can see that we're trying new things and we're willing to talk about what didn't work as well as celebrate what did work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to keep the largest faith-based financial institution growing at the national level, then that gives you the balance sheet to engage in the other part of the business, which is ministry lending, right?
Correct. And for those on this webinar who may not know this, our assets are split pretty evenly between individuals and
Mm-hmm.
families, and ministries and Christian-owned businesses. Pretty evenly split. And the whole credit union was founded originally 68 years ago, by a handful of ministers who were attempting to pool their resources together to help other ministers build new churches, help grow their ministry. So through our history, we've been a family of Christians pooling our resources together to help fuel ministry growth. And
Mm-hmm.
so growing the consumer side of the business and attracting consumer deposits gives fuel to low-cost lending solutions for ministries and Christian-owned businesses to help them grow and help them fulfill their eternal mission.
Yeah, I mean, it lines up with the value. You put your money in a place that's aligned with your belief system. So
Exactly.
now with that though, how do you distinguish the high intent traffic from the high funnel browsers who might not meet your requirements as a faith-based financial institution?
That goes back to it goes back to the where the audience we're choosing to reach, the audience and then the messaging,
Hmm.
because those are both really good filters to take to take the general population through to know who we're that we're reaching the right folks. So we've talked about how we've done that with some Christian publications, with other publishers that over-index Christian, but also with more sophisticated programmatic digital, where we can create more sophisticated models of Christians out there using data available to then reach them on a targeted basis
Hmm.
with the right message, the right offer at the right time, and attract them into the credit union too. So it's a combination of all of those things, but it's first and foremost it's audience targeting, and secondly it's message. That's
Hmm.
how we're going to
Hmm.
get the devout Christian who wants to work with us because of our mission.
And frankly, it's not unusual. I was at the Marketing Associated Credit Unions conference. We had a dinner. We had the CMO of a large credit union that is in the healthcare space, and they um, can offer services to members of a particular large healthcare insurer. So if I ask him, well, did you get the list of employees, past or present? He goes, no, I got to go find them myself. Like so, and that stuff's tough to target. So, but that's the job of marketing. Now, having said that, you have the best marketing in the world, but if your account opening experience is a zero, any number times zero is going to give you zero. So,
Don't do
uh, when
that.
you revamp the account opening experience with Clutch, if there's one single friction point that you removed that had an impact, what would you say that was, Aaron?
I would say it is that fraud orchestration layer that Nikki talked about. It's being able to deliver a prospect experience that aligns with the perceived level of fraud risk,
Hmm.
so that the good folks are have a relatively seamless experience, and when they submit their application where there's fewer false positives. So we're letting more of the good folks through. But then those who are higher risk um, uh, have some speed bumps in the process.
Hmm. Hmm.
And those who are flat out fraudsters or just bad are getting weeded out right at the beginning. So it generates a really strong bottom of funnel outcome. The bad folks get weeded out early, and more of the good folks, we say yes to more of the good folks and deliver them an experience that sets the stage, a positive experience, a great experience with the credit union that sets the stage for everything that comes next, for successful onboarding, to engage using their account, adding new products and services over time, and fully engaging with the credit union in our mission and staying with us long term. But that first step sets the stage for everything that follows. If they had a bad experience on the front end, that's gonna set a bad precedent for what comes next.
Hmm.
If they have a
Hmm.
good
I remember you were
experience,
working on
we've got them for the long term.
self-authentication. Did you get that sorted out?
Excuse me?
You were working on self-authentication with Clutch, right?
That's one of the key elements of the fraud orchestration layer we added, is not only ID verification, but then getting a selfie added to that so we can more precisely confirm the identity of the applicant and know that the person who's applying is who they say they are. And a big step in ensuring that we're letting the good folks through.
So, Nikki, can you speak to how you address that trade-off? How do you make it easy for the real people to get through, and then you throw up roadblocks for the undesirables?
Yeah, well, let me take a little step back. and then we'll answer your question. There's two things that stand out when working with Christian Community Credit Union that I just wanted to make sure we have said. There's this DNA of being data driven, and Aaron spoke to it, the relationship he has with his board. I happen to be quite close with Margie, who is the COO, and Blair, who's the CEO. And what stands out when I talk to those two people, which I do regularly, they use the exact same words. They know the data that Aaron quotes of their marketing campaign. So it shows that there's a language and a DNA in the building that's not like, oh, I think it's going well, or I think it could be better, or I actually like one thing versus the other, or this color is better. No, no. The whole team speaks the same language and it's all data driven. Number one. And I wanted to make sure that we said that. The other thing is, and you had this discussion briefly a minute ago, Christian Community Credit Union is trying to be one thing for a specific audience and be the best one at it. What a lot of direct to consumer businesses are getting wrong is they want to be everything for everyone. And then you don't have identity, you don't create loyalty. So I wanted that to be said because now the question is, how do we serve these members who are specific to a specific audience with specific products in a way that it lends itself to the best possible experience? It goes back to parts of the application are configurable and others aren't. If Aaron has acquires new traffic for potential members through paid marketing and it's an audience that nobody knows, we just hope we optimize for the traffic. Well, you want that ID, you want that selfie and lively scan. But if Aaron goes to a business development event and visits a ministry and lets people apply from there, well, those people are somewhat pre-filtered. Level of fraud is probably likely a lot lower. So in those cases, you want to create a journey where consumers may not have to have the same checks and have to jump through the same hoops. And it goes back, those are the areas that need to be configurable without having to talk to us. So there's no one size fits all for all the creators, not even for all the initiatives and channels that Aaron and team are using, but you need to have the flexibility of treating one channel one way and another channel another way. Does that make sense, Carlo?
Yeah, it does. It does. And um, I'm seeing the Q&A exploding.
Oh, good.
So I think at this point, we should just open up the lines, Lisbeth, and let the folks ask their questions live. I think they're looking to get into a level of detail um, that will be interesting. So who do we have?
Sure, sounds wonderful. So let me unmute Caitlin here. Just a moment if you'd like to ask your question live to the folks. Okay. Okay, Caitlin, I think you had two questions. You are now unmuted. Thank you.
Yes. So the first question, which I think you may have answered based on how specific your membership is how do you ensure that all of the members you're bringing on become engaged members instead of just members who hold the deposit minimum share? Um, so that's the first question. Did you want me to ask the second, or did you want to answer that first?
I can answer that if you that would. Yeah, the so you're right. It's how we target and message to them that really sets the stage for that. But then it's what we do to then onboard them. Nikki mentioned that that in the process there's an opportunity to cross sell. We can just in the application process we can not only meet the initial financial need that they had, we can help address other financial needs that they may have right there right at the outset. So that enables us in some cases to bring a new member on board with multiple relationships, which is a great indication of ultimately how long they'll stay with us. If we're serving more of their needs, they're going to be likelier to find value in our relationship and stick around with us longer. But the onboarding process and then the member management process that follows is also really critical, which follows the acquisition piece. But it's really leading with mission and engagement with the mission and impact of the mission. and then following with product and pricing and value proposition.
Aaron, if I can jump in, maybe I can give an example. Somebody comes in, they're looking, for, let's call it a high yield checking account. As they're, providing their cell phone number, essentially what happens, that cell phone numbers get resolved to an identity. I won't get into the special sauce, but then once you have the identity, you can actually go do a soft pull on that person's credit profile and get a sense of, what the credit worthiness is. And you can also see what other essentially credit lines they have open. So, hey, this person's the 650, so I'm gonna give them, and they have a vehicle loan with, let's say, Chase. So I might give you a vehicle loan refi offer at the same time that I'm opening up that DDA. And you go, yeah, well, I'm going to save money and I'm going to put, and then I'm going to be working with somebody whose values I'm aligned with. Hell yeah. And then you get
Right.
you get the twofer. But it's, the part is that instead of asking all sorts of questions of your prospect, Nikki's team is, that orchestration layer is doing the hard work in the background to figure out A, how creditworthy you are, and B, what does that mean in terms of cross-sell opportunities in real time?
Yes. And you've just surprised and delighted them because you're meeting a need that they weren't even thinking about when they started the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's how e-commerce works, right? You look at a dining room table and they give you a set of 6 chairs that goes with it perfectly.
And then the second question, which I think you said that you're more of a nationwide organization, but for organizations who have specific segs or specific counties that they serve, do you have like thoughts on the best way to confirm an applicant's like that they're in our field of membership? Because right now ours is very cumbersome where they have to go
Mhm.
through like a drop down list and select where they're from. And some people don't know how they're
I can speak to that.
okay.
I'll speak to your old system where you actually had to type in the name of the church that you belong to, which is highly suboptimal when doing it on a glass screen.
Caitlin, the way the application can be configured is the following. If you're community-based and geographically based, the platform can automatically detect whether your zip code is within field of membership. And if so, we won't even ask you how to qualify. So should your zip code be within field of membership, we won't even ask you if you how you qualify because we will default you into you're within geography, number one. Number two, some credit unions lean heavily on census tracts. So should your address be in a specific census tract that is part of field of membership, same thing, we don't even need to ask a question. Now, if none of that is true or that's not your eligibility criteria, instead of telling you to type out your seg and then making it a manual process, we have this, we use this technology that when you start writing, it auto completes or tells you all the options. So let's say you start you start with B, and then we show you all the segs that are available that start with B, be it Boeing or any other company. You can just click on that one. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a Boeing employee. Well, now we know you're part of the seg, and we automatically skip the screen where it asks for membership eligibility. If you're not self-selecting through either autofill or prefill or through stating and selecting the specific criteria, you will end up on a screen that asks you the question, and we can push that traffic into a manual review queue, for example. And then you could touch base with the applicant and ask for evidence for whatever you're looking for, and or ask the right questions around, okay, how else would you qualify? And this goes back to a conversation Carlo and Aaron had earlier. For those folks that are 100% within field of membership that have no signs of fraud, you want to make that journey incredibly frictionless. So you want to remove all the friction where possible, ideally through data that you pull automatically instead of relying on the consumer to input specific data points. If somebody is a little bit on the fringe, either with his identity and or where he lives, maybe worships, you name it, and you feel like a follow-up question is warranted, then the application will automatically push you into that queue if you configure it such way that your team is able to focus their efforts on double checking and triple checking some of these things. So all the manual effort should go towards the more complicated cases. Every opportunity to optimize and automate we will allow you through the platform to automate. Does that make sense, Caitlin?
Yeah, thank you very much.
And then, yeah, Carla, you couldn't have described it better. If, and I'll add some data, if somebody opens a deposit account with Christian Community Credit Union, that person will then be presented with loan offers. So should you have a car loan with Chase on your Honda Accord, once you're done with opening the account, which shouldn't take longer than 3 minutes, the screen will show, hey, Caitlin, in your case, there's a few loan offers waiting for you. Click your consent to a soft pull. Oh, yeah, by the way, you can save $150 on your Honda Accord that's financed with the Chase loan. Go ahead and submit that application. And if you look at data, because I just praised all of us for being very data driven, around 1 out of 10 people do that. So around 1 out of 10 people who open a deposit account will also submit a loan application, which automatically deepens the relationship.
Fantastic. To snap you back though to that very tricky part about the qualification. We have some specific, even more detailed questions on how that works.
Oh,
Um,
what? Oh,
yes, we Connor, did that answer your question, or did you want to ask a little bit more of that question? I just unmuted you, Connor, if you had any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we struggle with is we have a lot of different paths to membership, both through SEGs, being active in the community, donating to one of our community partners. So where we seem to struggle is when they're presented with all those choices, even though we have things like in the employer field, we auto pre-fill from that seg list so that it's intuitive and easy to click on. But when we're getting people who may not know how they're eligible, that's where we seem to get some confusion and some page drop-offs there. How would you guys comment?
Connor, it sounds like you have geographical qualification criteria. You probably have I'm related to a member or something like that. Sounds like you have SEGs, and then it sounds like you have the opportunity to make a donation to a foundation or association. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're a federal credit union, we're a seg-based,
Okay.
and then we have other pathways like through certain NCUA exceptions and like donations.
And then just a follow-up question. It sounds like everybody can be a member through one or another means. And then the catch-all could be if I'm willing to donate to an association or foundation, I can become a member.
Yeah, so most people either they're going to be eligible through the SEG, through where
Yep,
they're volunteering with or affiliated with already, or if you want to donate, or if you're related, of course.
cool. So the platform allows you to configure a number of different things. The configuration that I see most often and that I think Carla will get excited about, you can basically say yes to everybody. You just need to figure out in which bucket the applicant fits from a
That's
membership
right.
list.
You say yes to everybody, and then you do the hard work of figuring out if they're going to be geographical, employer-based,
If
or
it's
donation. And I
if
think,
if
if
it's
the donations are minimal, you should just take that on as part of your cost of acquisition. If you're
both is
spending
possible.
$100 per funded, you might as
All
well
of the
just.
above is possible. So if somebody is within geography, the platform will take care of it. If somebody is in the right census tract, the platform will take care of it. Should the person define or provide or input an employer that's on a seg list, the platform will take care of it. If it's not clear how the applicant qualifies because the other three criteria just mentioned are not applicable, then the platform can be configured such that the consumer consents to a donation to a foundation association and then becomes a member anyway. And that way, through I guess the exception that you mentioned from the NCAA.
Yeah.
You could ask yourself, do you want to charge the $5 donation to the person's funding method, or do you want to consider it a marketing expense? You can do either one of those. Do you want to later on reconcile out of 100 people, 30 people became a member through a donation? Well, you always have the option to then, as you deepen the relationship, to have the conversation, reclassify it. But from Carla's perspective, I bet I'm putting words in your mouth, Carla, you would want to remove the friction as much as you can, default consumers into each of the buckets, and then maybe on the day two item, recategorize how somebody really qualifies. But you would never want to throw some friction into the process if you can say yes to everyone, but you might not be able to automatically determine which way it is. Does that make sense, Connor?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We try to do it as frictionless as possible right now. Like we have different paths or options on there. Like, oh, this is where I volunteer with, or oh, this is where I go to school. Try to find that path within
Yeah.
the application. But you guys are saying it's probably better to do that on the back end.
Yeah, I think you would want that because you're putting friction into the process. And then why do I say that? And why is that a problem? If I took a step back, and this goes back to we want to help Cretans become fintechs, the direct to consumer fintechs that they don't have that complexity of how do you qualify membership. So if you compare two funnels, one of the direct to consumer fintech, like say SoFi or Chime, and your funnel, you have the disadvantage of having to have an extra step. Like it's just a step that your competitors, if you consider yourself a competitor to these direct to consumer fintechs, they don't have that. So our recommendation and guidance, if it's applicable to you, of course, would be remove the step. Otherwise, you're playing an unfair game where you always have one more step than your direct to consumer, the fintech competitor. And if you can remove the step and you can reconcile some of it as a day two item, and you know that, let's say, two-thirds of the applicant and automation are classified correctly, then you give yourself a chance at competing on a plain or level playing field with a direct-to-consumer fintech, and you're not forced to asking a question that the others aren't forced to ask.
So you have a way, the platform has a way on the back end to actually do it for us or help us make that day two item? Or would I be
Well,
calling
the
the person
platform has a
and
way
saying,
to,
hey, do you volunteer for this? Or do you? I'm seeing it as if we take it out of the step initially, then going back to it would just be another question that I'm going to have to ask them just at a later time.
well, the platform has the ability to give you a queue that shows you all the ones that were defaulted into the donation path, where then you can triple check whether or not the donation to the foundation is really necessary or whether there is not for profit that the applicant volunteers at that would qualify the membership even without a donation. So my recommendation would be don't put a rock in the path of somebody who is coming with high intent about to open a deposit account or a loan, apply for a loan, but ask yourself, what's the expense of checking it later, knowing that even if the person doesn't volunteer, the donation path is always open.
Okay, thank you.
First.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Aaron. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. So, Elizabeth, I think we have time for maybe one or max two more questions. What
Sure.
do we
Okay.
have?
So yeah, here's one. So how do I begin to ask my team to get these results? Also, is there a benchmark to know if we are over investing in Google Ads? Where do I start to get this type of acquisition strategy?
All right. Well, let's start with the benchmark stuff. So, for the purpose of this discussion, and I just brought up on the screen, we've compiled the what a benchmark funnel would look like. So, this comes from the data that we track. This funnel would put you in the top 20% of financial institutions that we work with. And these numbers really can't be taken separately. They all go together. So, they're spending about 7,500, let's say, on Google Ads per month. Their media team is delivering clicks into the top of the funnel at $1.59 per click. But then we get into the numbers that really matter. So this is the fruit of the experience that Aaron and Nikki were talking about, how clicks convert into applications in the queue. So they're just north of 4.5% of the applications that come in. How many make it to the funded stage? That's your book to look ratio, 32%. So you do the math. It works out to a cost per funded of 106, which is pretty good. But then it depends what mix of products you're pushing. If you're doing mostly personal loans, you really have to be way below 100 to make that profitable. If you're doing things like mortgages, then the cost per funded of 350 or 400 will actually work for you. You have to look at the profitability of that mix, and ultimately, this is the number that Aaron's stakeholders care about. For every dollar that I spent in marketing, what's my ROI? How many dollars of a net income over the lifetime of these products am I bringing into the credit union? So in this case, all these numbers work together to give the financial institution a return on ad spend of over $12 per dollar spent. So, Now, you could be spending, more per click, but that has to come with a higher click to app ratio and a higher funded ratio. You could spend less, and then you'd be able to get away with a lower click to app ratio and lower app to funded ratio. But at the end of the day, all these numbers have to align, to get you this thing, and you want that really to be, if you're like a fintech like Chime, you might be able to run at 3x, 4.5x our return on ad spend. For a more conservative financial institution, it'd be better if you were in the double-digit territory. So that's the benchmark. I'll turn, Elizabeth, if you could restate the rest of the question for Nikki and Aaron so they can fill in the gaps here.
Carlo, can I jump on something you just said? Because
Oh,
I think it's
please.
so relevant. So this is exactly what I love about this collaboration here, because these data points and the mindset and DNA in how you guys look at it allows us to have really, really high quality conversations. An example, for example, is the 4.65% number. So that number is how many people clicked on an advert, ended up opening an account at the very end.
Correct.
There is a number of younger solutions out there. They're just not in the market and haven't been in the market for a long time. And they're just taking some shortcuts. For example, they say, well, somebody who doesn't have a cell phone number and doesn't want to reveal a cell phone number should not be able to open an account digitally. Instead, that person should go to the branch. If you do that, you lose 15%, 15% of this click to app ratio. So it's a very significant impact. The shortcut is, well, it's a little harder to run fraud detection ID verification on these 15%. So I'm assuming everybody's fraudulent. I think that would be a very bad assumption, especially if you look at the average age of a credit union member. Those are not Gen Z or millennials. Those are folks that may have a flip phone still, or may live in a geography where the internet isn't that strong, or you don't have cell signal. So you could either take a shortcut and cut everybody out who doesn't have a cell phone and doesn't want to lead with a cell phone, or uses his work phone as his or her cell phone, or you try to figure out how to optimize click to app and have means to handle these edge cases. If somebody doesn't have a cell phone, then the fraud detection ID verification journey needs to be a very different one than for the one who's submitted and led with a cell phone number. And so only if you as an organization or as this partnership, you allow yourself to have a conversation around these metrics and the implication of those, can you ever be able to fully fully optimize your marketing spend. Otherwise, you're just in the dark and you're making opinion-based decisions and not database decisions, if that makes sense.
So Aaron, how do you get your team to think like this?
It just becomes the focus of conversation. You do this by example. You show what you care about. You show what the CEO and the board cares about, and you center the conversation on the metrics that align with that. So you get folks away from talking about vanity metrics and talking about the quality of what you're generating, and the quality gets reflected in what you're generating at the bottom of the funnel. So I think it's really leading by example.
Well, ain't that the truth? So this has been incredibly informative, Aaron and Nikki. Thank you for pulling back the curtain and revealing all the machinations, all the thought, all the tough conversations that had to happen to be able to deliver this kind of performance. And for that, I personally and the audience were very grateful. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Carlo.
Thank you. It was a pleasure
Take
being
care.
here.
Have a wonderful day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You have a good day too. Bye-bye.